Hey, it's not a
Hey,
terrible show.
not a terrible show.
It's not a terrible show.
No,
And today we're going to talk about not so terrible safety
that's
stuff.
right. Exactly
Yeah.
right. Well, as you know, Brian, got a lot of stuff going on with COVID-19 and things are happening. Everybody's talking about everything from PPE, wearing your mask and all that
Yeah.
stuff. But I would like to, before we say anything about that, to say
Yeah.
that the only way to have a culture of safety, is to get 100% buy-in from the direct supervisors that manage the bulk of the workers. If your direct supervisors are
Right.
drinking the safety Kool-Aid, you got a culture.
Yeah.
If you don't, then you don't.
Otherwise, you got there. They told us to do this stupid stuff, and
That's
I
right.
guess, if you feel like doing it, you can do it. But otherwise,
Right.
I don't really care.
Yeah, that's the face exactly.
That's the worst safety man. I don't really care.
That's the face. But yeah, it is true because sometimes people hear things, they have different interpretations of things, and
Yeah.
somebody else said something. So your direct supervisor has to believe and agree with the safety program. But I thought I'd start off with this. Here's something I'm hearing out there, and that is they're trying to do social distancing, right?
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean, by the way, not communicating,
Yeah.
right? And they're doing that, and then they have this social distancing. Then they get together and eat, and they're like face to face sharing food. Not a great
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah.
So social distancing actually is a big issue.
Yeah.
You can't share food. You can't be sitting right up on each other. So I think that's one thing I'm hearing from safety professionals, especially when we talk to these guys, they're following all the rules. Next thing you know, they have lunch and they just forget everything.
Yeah, eating the same strand of spaghetti together, Lady in the Tramp style, not a good
Yeah,
idea.
that's not a good idea where you just slowly go together.
Sharing a milkshake with two straws, not a good idea. Not a
I'll
good
tell you
idea.
right now, I don't
Normally,
think that some of these I don't, yeah, right. That's a terrible idea. But I think the chances at a chemical plant or a manufacturing place that two dudes are
and that's the way I said it.
is
Yeah.
really low.
I know.
It's a low chance.
I know. There's so many milkshakes shared. Anyway,
Right.
so yeah, that's true. I think what's interesting is if you don't have really a sense of what sterile is and contamination,
Right.
decontamination procedures, if you haven't been through that, then you may not really have a reference point for it.
That's
But
true.
but when I was in acupuncture school, we were taught what's called clean needle technique, and we were taught
Right.
you use your paper towel here, that is sterile. And then, what you put on or take off, and then the rubbing alcohol and all this stuff, you had to constantly have in your head what's contaminated and what's not, right? And separate it.
Right.
So like if we buy groceries, I come in, we decontaminate all the things I bought with chlorine, I wash my
Right.
clothes, and I take a shower.
Right.
I'm assuming, that I was infected. So having some kind of training along those lines to show how kind of OCD you have to be
Right.
about this stuff could be helpful for employees.
Well, I think there is a lot of training out there. I think the training is getting better.
Yeah.
And I think the information is good, meaning that most people have some pretty good information out there.
Yeah.
Right now with PPE, it is about properly wearing this stuff. If you're
Yeah.
going to wear a mask and wear gloves, how to do that properly. So it's
Right.
the process and procedure behind that. But again, when it comes to safety, the safest cultures are people who look out for each other.
Yeah.
So employee engagement, having people on the same page, having people agreeing with the same, their belief systems aligned.
Yeah.
They're doing those things, because what happens is, you have one person who doesn't do it. And if that person who doesn't do it is the person who's been there the longest, people look up to them. They're that person.
Mm-hmm.
Or again, if it's a supervisor, then all of a sudden your culture just goes to hell and you're out there doing something weird and you're sticking your hands
Yeah.
into a bucket of chicken and,
Yeah, it's tough. I did a safety keynote for some fire chiefs.
Yep.
And, it's just they're such an interesting culture, because people that fight fires typically are pretty type A, pretty, driven, and
Right.
they like risk. That's the weird thing about it, is like, how do we be safe when part of your culture is that you kind of like to be a gung-ho,
Right.
person,
Right.
not wearing a seatbelt, falling out of the fire truck. There's things like that happen that are
Right.
just crazy, because being macho is part of the culture. So that's something that's hard to change in your culture.
That's a huge point, Brian. I think that's a point that a lot of people are afraid to bring up, and that is that sometimes your culture is, I got to get out there and man up and get the job done, right?
Yeah, and manning up, against a virus doesn't really work.
Terrible idea. The people who've manned up against viruses are all irreversibly dead. Those guys are all,
They're man down is what they are.
They're 5 man down. So the thing is, though, is that I've done actually people who are in that arena as well. I've done fire departments, things like that. That's different than chemical plants and oil refineries. Those guys are a different breed, for sure. But there is this idea that I've got to go out there and man up and save people and all that and put yourself at risk. I've always said a couple of things. Bravery is almost always followed by regret. We love to think of bravery as, I'm so brave, And people
Braveheart,
Braveheart, look at happened to him.
Intestines all over the place,
Oh, he got dissected like a pig in an 8th grade,
What 8th graders are dissecting pigs?
Exactly right.
I don't know.
So my point is, I'm going to make one any minute, I'm almost sure.
Okay.
My point is that there is something in one's mind that says, I have to go in and save the day and help others. And yes, we want to help others and make others safe. But if our effort of helping others is putting ourselves in danger, then that's not good. But also my concern always is when someone who has no concern for their own situational awareness, I'm just going to go in there and be the helpful, brave hero person. My concern is people watch that and they'll emulate that behavior. And the more influential that you are, the more people who look up to you, the more likely that behavior is going to be seen as behavior to emulate. I tell the story about a guy who's never had an accident. He's unbelievable. He's been there for 25 years, but he doesn't do it the safe way. And people show up and copy that guy.
That's right.
There's this old saying about, we're kind of all equal as long as we know how to do something. Wrong. That guy's got a better eye. He's got more experience, and he's probably apparently very lucky. 25 years. You copy that guy, you're going to get hurt. And so the conversation with the leader has to have, the supervisor with that person is, hey, look, we know how good you are. You're the best person we have. You've never had an accident or a near miss. Congratulations. You're lucky. You're fabulous. The problem is everybody's not you. They don't have your eye. They don't have your long-term experience. They don't have your talent. And they're going to watch you and screw up. So safety is a team sport for the good of everybody. If you do it the safe way, not just for you, but for everybody.
Being considerate of other people. And I think, if you think about it, it's not, there's nothing wrong with wearing a seatbelt so you don't go flying through a window when you get in a car crash. There's nothing wrong with having a house over you and around you for safety. There's a lot of things we do that are smart things to do that, whether you're a man or a woman or whatever kind of person you are, might be other choices now. I don't know. There are some other choices. But whatever you are, and people may not be sure what that is, but whatever you are, there's a way to do it that's safe. So
that's exactly right. There's no one in some specific situation where somehow they can't be safe. That's I mean, I think you can always make excuses, but I go back and look at what people said after an incident. And it's always interesting. We weren't thinking, or we didn't know, or we were tired, or that's what Bill said. It's interesting. So there's never, you can make all this.
Well, it's like you want to take care of your family if you've got one or your loved ones, right? So you don't want to bring something unsafe into their environment.
That's exactly right.
And part of that teamwork is making sure that your teammates are safe and you're not doing anything to put them at harm.
That's exactly right. But you just made a kind of connected back to where we are right now. And that is, if someone is sick and you've got symptoms and your symptoms are fever and you've got a cough, you may not have COVID-19, but not going to work may be what you're supposed to, that may be the right thing to do, is to not go to work. I mean,
that's a tough one because people may or may not have PTO. But regardless, there's some good arguments for everyone wearing masks because not so much that it keeps you from getting sick, but it keeps you from spreading it. And if you can spread it asymptomatically, you have to assume that you have it. You could spread it to somebody else. at changing that culture to where everybody could wear masks. And masks are not fun because it's hot. You get hotter under there. But getting used to it is just part of what we're having to do here. And surgical masks are not effective, by the way. It's got to be an N95 at least.
Exactly right. And the thing is, what's interesting is, like, I'm looking at your beard, because you'd have to shave that beard off to wear a mask properly.
Yeah,
that's the
true.
reality. Yep.
That's true. Although the ones, the painter masks that are really tight, I think that might actually make a seal. I have one of those.
Right. And that's what guys with beards always say. You're defending your beard. Brian Carter is a beard defender.
Well,
I will say this, because I happen to be lucky enough that we dealt with 3M back in the day, and 3M made that stuff, that fabric.
Yeah.
And what 3M said was this, that basically it's designed to, in the 1920s, designed to prevent a surgeon from getting food particles or saliva into a wound. That's why they developed it. It was used later for a lot of other interesting things and ideas. Yeah. But what's key is that coughing into it or spitting into it at point blank range, it'll stop blood and saliva and particles. Yeah. But if someone coughs onto it, it will go through. It is porous.
Yeah, it's important to, like, if there's a good test I read some doctors were talking about on Reddit. They said if you can smell like an aromatic candle or a fart or whatever, which might be more likely that you'd smell at some workplaces. If you can smell that through the mask, you're not protected from the virus, because the particles in the virus are smaller, the aerosol particles. Right. So your mask has to be good enough you're not smelling any farts, and then you're safe. In both ways, you're safe.
Thank you, Brian, for bringing that up. Hopefully
I always bring up farts.
Well, that's great.
Literally.
That's what I like about you. I like your maturity. That's that maturity is not going to raise its ugly head. Not in this. Not in this segment. No.
Not for me. No.
No, but you're right. You have to know those things, and a lot of great safety professionals, they do know those things, and I think that's great. It's making sure that people hold that belief. You want to make your safety message just has to stick.
Yeah.
Knowing it and doing it don't have much in common. You got to be able to make it stick.
Communicate.
And they're going to remember about the farts. That's
this fart's going to stick.
Yeah, right. That's gonna be the key. That is the absolute key to this entire thing.
It's going to penetrate for sure.
But the other thing I was going to say, and I know you've got a lot to say about this too, is that as we move forward and we move, out of where things are looking a bit better, so we're going to move out of this. There's going to be a certain point where we're not in this phase anymore.
Yeah.
Make sure the things that we do now are going to help us in the future. This transitional awareness to make sure as we're transitioning through things, we're going to learn some things, and we'll be able to take that into the future and to handle people well, to talk to people, to treat each other very well. It's real easy to be upset, to be tense, and to be stressed, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And to say the wrong thing, to overreact. Those are things that happen in these times. And
people are stressed. Yeah.
And they're stressed out.
Yeah.
And as you know, stress lowers the immune system. And the last thing you want to do is to be stressed out in the middle of a pandemic. That's the worst thing you can do.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And I know we got to wrap it up.
Sure.
But yeah, it's a good time to be nice to yourself and everybody else, because everyone is stressed out and more likely to say something dumb or offensive or irritable. I would never do that. I never.
Well, you do that every show, but still.
Wait, say something dumb or get irritable? Both. Okay.
Everything. You'd always
everything. Yeah. But yeah, it's a good time to be conscious of how you're treating yourself and other people. So.
Well, conscious is the key. I mean, the key to safety is being present in the moment. Are you really conscious what you're doing?
Unconscious workers are not very safe typically. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Unconscious. We got all these unconscious.
Not being safe is often followed by unconsciousness.
Bill is unconscious again.
Yeah, that's
Get him off the conveyor belt.
Anyway, I don't think this was a terrible show. It's not a terrible show.
No, it was pretty good. I would say it's a pretty good show.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. Well, that's safety, and that's not a terrible show. I'm Brian Carter. That's Garrison Wynn. Don't forget to subscribe to the show on YouTube.
You want to push the subscribe button, because you can't subscribe unless you push the subscribe button.
Yeah, push that subscription button so you can be a subscriber.
Exactly right.
All right.
Okay, maybe this is a terrible show. Now that
We're out. Now it's
not a terrible
terrible.
show.
No?
Not a terrible show.
Okay, I don't know.